My name is Heun, I'm a consultant psychiatrist, and I'd like to talk about induced delusional disorder. I will give you some examples later, but now I start with the theory. And the other thing I'd like to say that we're doing a series of mental health disorders explained in this YouTube channel, Global Psychiatry Archives. So if you like it, please subscribe. Anyway, induced delusional disorders are classified as delusional disorders unspecified. They have been described for quite some time in the 17th century and have been recently more or less redetected in the 90s of the last century. And people looked at the literature and found that there is equal sex ratio, so men and women have the same frequency. There's very broad range of ages. 90% are couples or siblings, or very often parent-child, so very close relationship. And I can come back to that with examples. And usually these people who have that have very often depressions, dementia, other mental retardation, and usually these couples or these people who have that folie à deux or à trois, they are socially isolated, and they very often have hallucinations. Usually the story is a long story, so people have this very long time. They usually function with this a bit, but sometimes they just drop out of life. Come back to that. So they usually share beliefs, which are the delusions. So persecution is a common one. You might have heard about the case of a couple who recently left their homes, traveled through the country, and eventually lost the baby. That was in January, February 2024. They sadly, because the baby wasn't cared for, the couple lost the baby and are under prosecution today. They disappeared, took taxis, and it sounds very much like they have been prosecuted. However, I can't say it for this case, but I have another case which I had in my clinic recently, where a couple felt that they were prosecuted by the police. The police would want to take the children away, and eventually they managed to get with the family, so took the children out of school, managed to go to Ireland. They thought that the police was also involved in a pedophile ring, and they traveled there, and what eventually happened is that the family traveled to Ireland. The police or whatever social services weren't happy with this care of the children, and what they feared, that the kids were taken away, eventually happened, just to protect the children, which is a very sad self-fulfilling prophecy. Right, so other examples include delusional parasitosis, that people believe they're infected with parasites, and sometimes there can be these ideas can be shared and can be very difficult. Sometimes people believe, or couples believe, that their places are haunted, or they have children who don't exist. That can happen in dementia. They might have delusions of misidentification someone, or very often, and that's another example, they might be part of a cult or a quasi-religion, where they think that, that the apocalypse is coming, and then people have to do things which are very unusual, and people kill themselves. Anyway, subtypes of this folie à deux or induced delusions include folie imposee, which is a French word, so that means the delusion of one person is adopted by another healthy individual. There are folies simultanee, where two people develop psychotic delusions at the same time. but they adapt them that they more or less shared. Folie communiquee is something which is a bit unusual, or you could also call it folie imposee, but the difference is more or less in the latter, the folie communiquee, that there's an initial period of resistance, and only after a while a healthy individual adopts the delusion of the person who is initially or primarily psychotic. Folie induite means that there is a psychosis, that both people are psychotic, but the one adopts the delusions from the other. So what do you do? And the question of management can be separation, and in some cases it can lead to the complete remission, usually first of the one who has this induced folie, and the one with a primary delusion might be a bit more difficult. But sometimes, and I come back to this case where the family tried to flee to Ireland from the police, it seems that both parents are more or less unclear who started first. So it seems that they just adapted this belief system quite at the same time. And interestingly, they were treated with antipsychotics for years, and at the moment they're quite fine, and we are trying to titrate the medication down, and we were quite successful, at least for the father. Anyway, so the question is, psychological interventions may try to support people giving up the delusion or to challenge the delusion, which sometimes doesn't work. And there's also some pharmacological medication, which usually should be for the primary or active partner and should not be used for the passive partner, except when they both have been psychotic themselves. It's interesting thinking about the etiology, because some people have a psychodynamics theory, which means that people are very isolated, cannot test reality, and the passive acceptor has some Oedipal fantasies, which then may be related to their psychotic partner, so causing more or less that the dominant partner is seen like a parent. However, that's a bit, I would say, a difficult approach. Some people say there's some learning theory, so, some people learn from the other, which might be a little bit when people have learning disabilities, that they adopt from seeing other people and might not challenge their own thoughts. So sometimes, mental health problems or learning disabilities might be predisposed and might make sense. Social isolation might be a problem when people live in a very isolated environment. Then some delusions can affect them. Right, so usually how it's classified, you might know from previous talks that we talk about the ICD. It's the International Classification of Diseases, and they have version 10 and 11. And in version 11, there is different types of psychotic disorders which are related to schizophrenia. We also classify according to DSM, which is a diagnostic and statistical manual for classification of diseases, currently the 5th version. And in these versions, there are persistence, so let's say it that way. There are other disorders, schizophrenia spectrum disorders or psychotic disorders, which are classified, and one disorder is delusional symptoms in partners of individuals with primary delusions or other of these schizophrenia spectrum disorders are persistent auditory hallucinations, delusions with overlapping mood episodes, or attenuated psychotic syndromes, where the psychosis is more or less not as bad and might not affect the functioning. That's me, more or less, for today. I hope you like this talk about induced delusional disorders, and if so, just like it. And if you really want to continue learning about mental health problems in an easy way, just subscribe to our channel. And I hope you have a nice evening. Goodbye then. Bye-bye.